Hey, welcome back to class. I want to talk about structures, and this time the question is, do some structures not connect main units together? Again, remember, in inductive Bible study, structure happens at multiple levels. Structure happens at the book level, the unit level, the segment level, the main the subunit level, paragraphs, verses, and even phrases. And this should be division here. Sorry about that. It's the idea that you divide a book into divisions. You have segments, and then there's main units and subunits. And so notice that there's layers, right? So here's the key thing. When you do a survey, when you're looking for major structures, you're interested in whatever the unit that you're working on. So like if you're doing an individual psalm, you're interested in the structures that connect the biggest parts of the psalm. If you're looking at a book, you're interested in the structures that connect the biggest amount of material in the book. The definition of a major structure for inductive Bible study, again, depends on what you're surveying, right? But it connects main units. So the first level of divisions that you can do on whatever size you're surveying. So if you're doing, say, a psalm, you break the psalm into 2, 3, 4 main units. And then you're looking for major structures that connect 2 or more main units. The only exception to that on the major structure rule is if one of your main units is bigger than 50% of the total amount of verses in what you're surveying. So that's the 50% rule, and then you can just have a structure within a single main unit in that case. But it has to either connect 2 or more main units or control 50% of the material. So let me just draw a quick example. Again, I have similar ones in some of my other videos, but let's just say we have a psalm. The psalm has 12 verses. So there's 2 verses here, 8 verses in the middle, and then 2 more verses at the end. So you got 3 main units, right? And then in here we may have a couple of subunits. These would be the subunits. Subunit 1, subunit 1, 2, 3, ABC, and we'll say here's a couple more subunits, A and B, right? So that would be the 3 main units with each subunits. Okay, so major structures for here will be things that, like, how does unit 1 connect with unit 2? If you find a structure that connects with unit 2, that's a major structure. If you find a structure that connects unit 2 to unit 3 or unit 1 to unit 3, that's a major structure, right? The only exception here, since this middle section is so large, it's 8 out of the 12 verses, or in this case 7 out of the 12 verses. I can get my math right on this thing. If you would find a structure that controls the bulk of this inside, that would also be a major structure. But structures that only happen in this first unit are not major. Again, they still could be structures, but for our survey, we're looking at the biggest chunks. Otherwise, you have minutia, and we don't need minutia at the survey level. The whole point of a survey is to see the big contours. Okay. Same with here. Any structure that's just in 3, not a major structure at this point. Okay. Now, some questions then. What does that mean? Okay, so it's like if the introduction is verses 1 and 2, does that mean that isn't a major structure? No, that's not correct. Introduction, this could be introduction, but what does it do? It introduces themes that show up elsewhere, so it's connecting the first unit to the rest of the material. This, let's just say the climax is just right here, and maybe this is just verse 12, and that's actually the high point, the climax. Okay, that's the climactic passage, but guess what? If that's the climax starts back at the beginning and builds. So that's a major structure, right? You might have cause, effect. You might have recurrences. Like, how are recurrences major structure? A recurrence is a major structure if it happens in multiple unit. So like, let's say we have recurrence of certain types of language in here. I'm just going to grab a different color marker real quick. So let's say we have a recurrence of, say, righteousness. Maybe it happens here, happens here. If it's only in that first unit, that's not recurrence. But if it happens maybe here and here, that's recurrence now because it's in 2 of the units, right? So that's the key thing. You want distribution. So again, a major structure connects your 2 or more main units or controls 50% of the material, right? Just give you one more example from recurrence. Let's say that we have a recurrence of trees or something, some kind of arboreal imagery, tree or grass, and it happens here and here and here and here and here and here. Again, that's a major structure now because it's distributed over 50% of the material in that big middle unit. Hopefully this answers the question. Again, feel free to ask about it in the forums, and if you're just watching this for fun and you have questions, you can feel free to reach out to me as well in the comments, and I'll try to answer your questions. It's a real privilege to be your professor, and best wishes and prayers on your inductive Bible study work.